I'm Carl Hauser, and I'm interviewing today Sandy Evenson, who is the moderator for CCUCC from June 1st of 2025 to May 31st of 2026. And we're just going to talk about her experiences with the church and where we're headed over the next year. So that's the plan. So, hi, Sandy.
Hi,
Um,
Carl.
I thought, let me get my notes. So, like we talked about earlier, I thought we might start with how you came to CCUCC and when, and what your involvement with the church has been over that period, and see where that takes us.
Okay. All right. Well, I first started attending the church when my daughter was 3, and I wanted to raise her in the church, in a church. And some friends recommended the Congregational Church, a United Church of Christ. And so I found this one. And the first day I walked in the door, the preacher was a female. The flowers on the altar were from the blessing of an LGBTQ plus wedding the day before, and all of the language in the hymnal and in the bulletin were inclusive or was inclusive. And I just thought, wow, this is the place. So um, that's how I first started.
Mhm.
And one of the things that just really captured me right away was there was a sign out in front that said, um, um, sorry, what is it? Affirming,
Open and affirming,
open and
open
affirming
for
and just peace
conversation.
church.
Uh,
And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant, but I had been raised in, a fairly traditional, typical Protestant church in the 60s. And that was, really focused on what you're supposed to believe. And I didn't always believe that stuff. And I just didn't really talk about it. And when I got to this church, it turned out that you were accepted for your disbelief, if you will, or if you had questions, or if you were just weren't quite sure of things. That I wasn't the only one. That was sort of part of what the
uh,
church was about, was being honest about that. Now it turns out that open and affirming means something different. It means being actively welcoming to the LGBTQ plus community. But the way I interpret it was welcoming of everybody, no matter where you were on the journey.
Mhm. Well, I think that's that's a good thing too, right?
Yeah.
To include that within. Um, so so you've been involved with the church as a member, and then I don't know when you started sort of being more involved in sort of what would you call that? Church activities outside of worship, the important things that the church does outside of worship.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Somehow I landed on stewardship and finance,
You
and
did,
um,
but
and
you were
enjoyed it.
also involved with faith development, I believe.
In faith development more recently, but there were a lot of things that Sunday school learning community,
Mhm.
um, and some of the special services of the church. Um, I got involved in those, but then one day, I don't remember if Christine asked me or if I volunteered, but I ended up filling the pulpit and giving a sermon. And I have really enjoyed that opportunity.
Mhm.
It's really been a faith development practice for me because I've had to learn more about the Bible and I've had to learn more about what resources are out there and what other people think about things and be able to say what I think. And people have seemed to like that. Um, so that's been a real that's been a big faith development process for me.
Mhm. Yeah. I've really enjoyed it when people from the congregation preach a sermon, including yours. I mean, you're not the only one who does that from time to time, but it is always eye-opening experience, I think, to understand where your friends and fellow church members are coming from in the in just how they're thinking about the church and faith and all that.
Hmm.
Um, am I correct in remembering that at one time you were at least toying with the idea of pursuing a study in divinity?
Yes, I thought about it off and on for a long time, and partly because I really did enjoy the process of not just coming up with a sermon, but planning the entire service. And so thinking of building a service in terms of, okay, so this is the theme and this is the kind of music that we want. And this is the call to worship that we want to bring people in. And this is how we want to send them off and that the message is consistent. Um, but I also felt that I generally, when I preach, I try to use something from the Gospels because I feel like if it's something Jesus said, I probably can't go too far wrong. But when
Mhm.
it comes to those things in the Old Testament, I do not know enough. And I felt like I wanted to learn that because I felt like there was just such a richness in not just the whole Bible, but in sacred scriptures generally.
Mhm.
And then we had our new pastor came, and I thought, well, maybe I could be more helpful. For whatever reason, I just decided to go for it. And I did actually apply to United Theological Seminary in Minneapolis, and I was accepted. But I kind of made that happen.
You
Did everything
forcing
right.
yourself down
I
that road.
forced it. I forced it. And earlier in the year, I had been to St. Gertrude's and had done a lot of listening. And what I heard God say was, the next thing for you will be handed to you. Don't try to make anything happen. Don't make any plans. And here I had made a plan. And it it occurred to me that this is not what I should be doing. That, in fact, being invited to run for moderator elect was being handed to me. And that's what I should really be focusing on, using skills I already have, knowledge I already have, um, and serve the congregation that way. So right now, that's the best path.
You've been a chair of an academic department, I believe.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So
for 5 years during the recession.
that. So yes,
Yes.
that's maybe even more difficult than organizing a congregation. I don't know.
I don't know.
I haven't been a chair of an academic department, but I have been chair of a curriculum committee.
Mhm.
Um,
I feel like I've had many years now to really reflect on that experience and that I really learned a lot about leadership. I'm using the quote marks
mhm.
here, um, and how to communicate with people and how to plan. And I feel like I've been given a second chance to put that to use in a really positive environment.
Uh-huh. Good way to put it. Way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Um, so maybe we can turn to the upcoming year. Um, your moderator. Could you I'm not sure that the congregation as a whole really understands what the moderator does and the available space for doing moderator differently. I mean, we've seen different moderators over the years who've taken different um, perspectives on what the job was, and maybe you could say something about what you see the job of the moderator is and what you're trying to do in that role.
Yeah, and that question has really crossed my mind a lot lately. I have never really understood how nonprofits work, where they have boards and executive directors and what is that exactly? And lately I've been figuring it out that you've got a bunch of people who are trying to do something good for themselves and others, and you need one person to be in charge. In this case, the pastor. You need somebody else to be sort of the chairman of the board. And I that's how I'm viewing this right now. As management and direction, I guess in a way I never understood that before. So when I think about working with Mike, I really see us as such a team where we we will bring different perspectives to the what's going on in the church. And yeah, and between the two of us making the right decision. But the so the buck stops with him, but I'm his wingman.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So
Yeah.
really looking forward to playing that role.
Yeah. The one of the challenges that I've found in organizations that I've worked for and with my own predilections, I guess, is that an organization has to do things on multiple time scales, and I think two is a good number to pick. There's what you have to do sort of every day, every week, every month to fulfill your mission in the short term. And there's what you need to have your head around to uh, make sure that the organization is going in a direction where it can survive, where it can thrive uh, a year from now, 5 years from now. Um, and for me, my head is always very much in the make it work now space. And so I've been really grateful for people like you and Herb who have really said, yeah, we got to do that, but we got to do something else too, which is make this institution survive and thrive. And so I really appreciate that you're doing that, um, and have good ideas about that because I just sort of tend to shut down in that space myself. And so I'm very grateful for people who don't. And so that's something that I wanted to say. Um,
Well, thank you.
Mike talked in his sermon last Sunday, and we talked about this in his interview too, about the institution of the church and the importance of the church as institution. And his focus was on the building last Sunday, but the building is not the only part of that we're facing up to. Could you say a little bit about uh, what you have in mind for the 5 year planning? Well, first of all, before we do that, could you summarize the previous 5 year plan that we're sort of coming out of and what's been accomplished in that? I know that's on your mind. We talked about that a little bit at the council meeting last weekend.
You might have to help me with this a little bit. But, but one of the things we accomplished out of the 5 year plan was to make the sanctuary more welcoming and make us more available to the community and to the rest of the world. And so we did that in terms of, and we had COVID on our side, so we could kind of sneak the pews out and get chairs in. And it sounds like a small thing, but being able to rearrange the church for different services really gives people a different chance to have their, experience of the spiritual in different ways. So it's a good thing. Um, the technology that we have now and the willingness of your tech team. I mean, it looks like mission control up there in the choir loft. You can do anything up there. So now we've got multiple screens. We can do Zoom. Mike can get chat things from Zoom and respond to those. We're on YouTube. Um, that was a huge, to me, that's one of the the most huge impacts
Uh-huh.
from that plan. We also wanted to be do a lot more with music. And so we have on and off had a choir or a music director. And we've tried different things with music. We have our music scholarships that we still have. Um, and you and Ginny and Kathy really are quite a team to give us great music every week. We have a lot of musicians in the church, and they are willing to come up and share with us.
They're sharing
Um,
music, yes.
yeah.
That is pretty wonderful. That was certainly something that was high on the list of things that the 5-year plan was talking about was continuing music and maybe
Hmm.
branching out a bit in some new directions with it as well. Although, um, for some of us, that's hard. We know
Yeah.
what we know, we know one thing and yes, we'll branch out a bit, but I don't think any of us is going to take up a guitar, for example. Um, one of the other things that's happened over the last 5 years coming out of the offer that we had to consider selling the building and the discussions that came around that, I think is a commitment on the part of the congregation to um, make the building work. And I think we're starting to get our heads around uh, the scope of that.
Hmm.
Um, and some ideas about what to do to stop thinking about the building as a financial resource, but turn to it as a faith resource, and make make of it what it needs to be to do that. So I can certainly see that coming up as part of our 5-year plan discussions in the future. What else is on your mind?
Well, one of the things is expanding our faith development program. Charlene is in that chair position now, and she's got a whole bunch more team members, so she's really
Oh.
got some resources to work with. Um,
Well, that's such an exciting change because 2 years ago it wasn't possible to get anybody who wanted to actually be on that team. So that people want to do that now is exciting, and I think having the little kids there probably makes people more excited about that. It was hard to be excited about that
yeah.
without some.
So I do like to think that even though there were only three of us on the team last year, we did enough things that people thought, yeah, I want to be part of that.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
so sorry about the squeaky chair. Um, but so now that we do have children, it does make us look at um, their faith development in a different way. You know, we used to have something called learning community, and uh, are we going to do Christian education, or are we going to be doing something a little bit more global? What direction do we want to take with that? Um, I'm also real excited about what Mike has been doing with the youth. He is being a counselor for the littles, the second to fourth graders
Uh-huh.
at Sitson coming up pretty soon.
Cool.
And so that has set a precedent for, he's the guy that goes to camp. So
Mhm.
if you are a couple of our children, and knowing that Pastor Mike is going to be there, they're just going to be that much more interested
Mhm.
to go. So that's that sort of really thinking ahead planning that I enjoy about working with Mike, and I would like to do a lot more of that kind of thing.
Um, let's see. Uh, Sorry, I'm sort of stalling here on what's on my
No,
list.
one more thing about um, Faith development is we've started doing more things like the book groups where people can read a book. And we tried it a couple different ways, but a book that is often related to the environment. And that comes out of the 5-year plan. Also, from last time, we had these faith in action groups, and the environmental group is still one of those groups.
Mhm.
And so, doing a book, reading a book, and then having a potluck, and then talking about how we can put our faith into action in an environmental situation. Whether it's how can we reduce plastics in the kitchen to really understanding the role of forests in a deeper, much deeper way than I ever could have imagined because
Uh,
it's not my field, right?
right.
Um, so, and I think that's one of the things that came out of our situation with the potential sale of the building. It was a rough time,
Was very hard.
and people had a lot of conversations, and I'm going to go ahead and call them holy conversations. Um, but I think we came out of that as a group more willing to talk and listen with kindness and respect. So I feel real good going into this new 5-year plan process because I feel like we have a vibe as a group right now. Seeing how the search process went also to hire Pastor Mike. Um, and I think because one of your questions from your email was how have I seen the congregation change or how the church has changed?
Mhm.
And we have gone from a, traditional Protestant church in America. We've watched demographics happen before our very eyes. And then we had this big issue, and then we had the pandemic. And I feel like we're kind of a little bit of a looser group. We're maybe less afraid of change, at least willing to hear some ideas, not just automatically, oh, that's not, we can't do that because then that's, we're can't do that.
Yeah.
Um, so as a group of people, I really like our congregation. And I think part of it is because we all got to see each other really struggling and then coming together and having a blast. That I wasn't part of the parade in the Johnson
Uh-huh.
parade, but I was so proud of us. The signs, the pictures, the showing up, the message that we sent. That's the kind of people we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. Much more out there, I
Hmm.
think, with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, one one concern may be too strong. One thought that I have is that it may not be good for us to be too comfortable with each other to the point that we're doing groupthink. Um,
Oh,
right? That are people getting so comfortable with each other that we're not actually being a little bit creative and exploring ideas on the fringes um, of whatever it is that we're doing, right? If you easily get consensus every time, then are we actually exploring um, all the important things? I don't know. It's just one aspect of groups that I try to keep an eye on and say,
yeah, no, that's a really great observation. One of the things I see people sort of sitting up and taking notice sometimes is some of the ways that we are trying to be as accessible as possible, like the A2A. and all of the different ways to be accessible, not just having ramps and um, hearing devices for the service and big print bulletins. It's having things in Braille, having things in Spanish, um, being aware of maybe codes that we're not aware of, that people who are different from us might not understand. Or I think we're kind of getting used to tattoos now. I think that was a change. Um, but I think there are enough things going on where people are maybe saying, "Oh, well, I never thought of that." And then I'm hoping that those little aha moments will show up in our conversations this fall.
I think as we've encountered had sort of ongoing encounters with people who are quite different from our past membership in terms of their sexual orientation, their mental capacities, their disabilities. Um, for me, it's been quite eye-opening to see what it means to be accepting, to truly be accepting of those people and what what they bring to the congregation. Because sometimes service is a little bit disrupted by things, and yet that people are being who they are. They're not malicious in whatever it is they're doing. That's just who they are. And so what does that mean? And how do we accept that is something that I think is actually good for us individually. At least it's good. I feel it's good for me.
Yeah, I think it is good for each of us. And all the different ways that the service is different now. It's one thing to say, yes, we want children in the service, but children do make noise. And um we can talk about levels of that and all that kind of thing. But I think for some people, it's a whole new idea that church should be, the children should feel as comfortable in church as they do anywhere else. And so then they could go up for the children's sermon, and they can go up for communion. And if they want to go sit with their parents, they can do that. And it is going to be a little louder. It is going to be a little bit more chaotic, but this is who we want to be.
Right, right.
And I think it's hard. That's just one example of, I think.
It comes back to the broad vision of open and affirming, actually.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting 5 years that we're entering here. It's so exciting that we do have these young families coming. Um, uh, Hoping that they're going to stay. They seem to be settling in and seem to be pretty comfortable. They're participating in activities. For me, going to church for the first 3 years I lived in Pullman, we came to this church because that's where my parents were going, and so we just
Right.
go there. And for me, the true involvement did not really start until um, Sheila Converse twisted my arm to join the choir, which meant um, being there an hour early each Sunday, um, and being there each Sunday. Right up to that point, just we'll go if we're going, but not otherwise. Maybe not otherwise. And so this commitment to be there every week is, no, it's just like a job. The first commitment is to be there. Then you
Yeah.
go there. If you can't be there, then it's not real in some sense.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. Anything else that's on your mind about the upcoming year? And where we're headed?
Well, just one thing as I've just gotten to know Mike better and back to the um, do I want to go into ministry? He is so transparent about his job and how he thinks about money, how he thinks about faith development, how he thinks about music, um, the environment, how people interact with each other. And what I'm getting from him is that, if you're gonna be somebody who's ordained, you have to be bringing your faith into every single thing you do. And I know we all try that. We try to do that. That's one of the reasons why we go to church and listen to the sermon is to get tips on how to, keep being a person of
That
faith.
in our lives, yes.
Yeah. Um, but that there is when you're an ordained person, there is a depth to your knowledge and your commitment that I now really appreciate. And I mean, I certainly have respect for that, but um, I think we just really all have a lot to gain if we listen to every single word he says, because he doesn't say anything without intent.
Mhm. Cool.
So,
Okay. Well, that's a good message to pass along, I think, to the congregation as we go into this. So the plan is that we'll be having some small group discussions here over the next few months, I believe, um, related to the five-year planning exercise. And um, I presume you're going to introduce that to the congregation at some point, or you and Mike will.
yes, in the next couple of weeks, we'll start letting people know that this is the plan and this is how it's going to work. And there will be sign up sheets, and then you can go to any one of four locations, and every week there'll be a different question or statement um, with what do you think? And
Yeah,
yeah,
I just wanted to get that as part of this conversation because there are other things in the conversation that would be confusing without that little bit that says, yes, you're going to be invited to to this process and that will be happening soon. I just wanted to make sure
correct.
that we said that at some
Yes.
point
And I
if
just
somebody
making
read
sure
it.
that everybody gets a chance to say everything that they want to say. Um, we want everybody's voices. So if you can't come to a group, you can be interviewed. We can send you an email. We can send you a questionnaire. We want everybody's voices.
Well, that's great, Sandy. Thank you for joining this interview and agreeing to be one of my guinea pigs in interviewing as I learn how to do it. So
Happy to
uh,
be a guinea pig.